drawing for an iPad at the end of the 5 weeks.
A car?
Did you say a car?
No.
But to win the iPad, you got to get all 5 sessions here. So we'll go ahead and we'll make some introductions here and welcome everybody to our Money Smart program. First State Community Bank offers this program as a way to give back to the community. We've done this in markets previously. Mineral Area College has offered it, Three Rivers and East Central, and it's been successful in all our markets. And what we want to do is make this your class. You know, this is for you to ask questions and absorb everything you can about small businesses. So if you need financial training, we want you to leave here with something. You know, you invested your time coming up here. You know, the course is free, but we know your time is very valuable, and we want you to leave here with some very good information, we think, coming from the best people that we know that can provide this information to you. My name's Rick Francis. I'm the market president for Jefferson County. I grew up in Jefferson County, graduated from this college. I was talking before that I think I even had psychology in this room right here. That was a while back. I'll introduce you to some of the people from the bank. My name's Rick Francis. I'm the market president. We have Tracy McClinton. She's our branch manager in DeSoto and is our retail regional manager for Jefferson County. Ed Scholl, he works out of our Imperial office. He's our senior lender for Jefferson County. We have Brian's office, and he's going to be a teller manager for us in Festus. Debbie Kettler, she's our branch manager in our Imperial office. And we're here if you have anything that we can help you with and make this our goal, and our vision is for our customers to achieve financial success, and we want to protect that success. And to do that, this is one way. The other way is to provide you all the banking services you need, and and we're going to be talking about that the weeks to come. We'll be talking just kind of an overview. Tonight we'll be talking about business types. We have, and I'll introduce Mr. Stichling here in a minute, and he'll be talking to you about record keeping and accounting for your business. Next week we'll be talking about marketing and banking services, and we give an overview, and then the third week is financial management. That's the nuts and bolts of all those numbers and what they mean. And we have an expert named Craig Sutherland who does an outstanding job, and he just loves those numbers. So Craig is a very good teacher, mentor to us. He helps us understand what the numbers mean. And that's in the fourth week we have time management and risk management. We have 2 experts, Scott Pitts and Dan Combs, out of our holding company office in Farmington. They'll be coming up and sharing a lot of valuable information about time management and risk management. Then last but not least, we have credit reporting and succession training. We have 2 of our chief presenters, which is Chris Wigger, who is the president of our Ironton branch, and Kevin Cook, who is the president of our Bonne Terre branch. And they are entertaining, to say the least, but they're very knowledgeable. They've been running the banks for a long time, and not that Werner's not entertaining, but it's definitely a treat. So we hope that we put together, some sessions and that'll make sense and give you something to grasp and take hold of and go in the future. Just some ground rules. There's not a whole lot of them. We just want you to feel comfortable to ask questions when you have them. Our presenters, are there to help you. They're giving their time, and we appreciate that so very much. Werner is not a stranger. Werner Stichling, he is our first presenter, and he'll be talking about record keeping and tax planning. And he's taught a class for how many years, Werner?
25 years.
25 years.
Developed how to start a small business.
How to start a small business through the continuing ed at Jefferson College. So, first thing that came to my mind is Werner Stichling. He owns with Stichling and Associates. They have offices in Festus and DeSoto. And Werner has been a friend. I consider Werner a friend and an associate, and he's been in this Jefferson County, has been a key partner of Jefferson County, and has been very successful in his business, and he's helped a lot of people achieve success through his business. And so with that, if anybody doesn't have any questions, before we get started, kind of make some introductions of ourselves. So we want you to feel comfortable. Let's just kind of go around the room. Like I told you, I'm Rick Francis. My office is in Hillsboro most of the time. It's where I spend time, but I live in DeSoto, and I grew up there. Fonda, would you kind of share something with you?
Fonda Tate. I am the chiropractic assistant at Barnhart Chiropractic. So,
Ms. Juanita?
I'm Juanita Akers, and I have Barney Burgers, frozen foods, which everybody thinks is a restaurant, but it's a frozen food situation, similar to the Swan Truck in DeSoto, Main Street.
I've known Ms. Juanita for a few years. She's known me. Yes.
Lisa Bone. I have a beauty shop in DeSoto, and I just thought I'd take the class because I've had it for about 10 years, and I do what's right for me, but I'm not sure it's right, you know? So that's why I'm here helping.
My name's Kevin Cox. I had known nothing about business, trying to get one going.
Oh,
So this came in a very fortunate time.
well, good. Awesome.
I'm Allison Deerdorf, and I'm working with him to try to help him get his business going.
Great. Well, we're certainly glad you all came. And what I'm going to do is turn it over to Mr. Stichling, and he has some information for you. And Werner, if you want to, you can just take the helm. And we're very glad to have you here. Let's give Mr. Stichling a hand.
We're not going to talk about bookkeeping. Sorry, Rick. But we're going to do something a little different. I've got a handout. Here you go, Stoke.
Thank you.
What type of business are you thinking about getting into? Do you have any idea?
I do got an idea. I worked at a electroplating shop for 26 years.
A what?
Electroplating shop,
What?
chrome plating, nickel plating.
Oh, plating.
And I ended up basically, I was supervisor, I was in charge of the place. I also did every other process. And we had a fire back in February.
Oh,
It took care of, it didn't burn down the building, but it damaged everything in it. And as of August, I was done there with everything I could do. I want to go around to other platers and metal finishers and do for them what I was doing for PC plating.
so kind of being an independent contractor?
A consultant and analyzing tanks and processes. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything specific you're looking to get out of the accounting end of it today? Just a general overview?
Yeah.
General overview, and yours also. Just a little bit of history. Over 25 years ago, I put together a group of seminars called How to Start a Small Business from Scratch. And I included the accounting end of it, an insurance specialist, legal specialist, a lender, and other items that businesses needed to help them get started in their venture. One of the things that I like to do is try and get an idea of what everybody is doing or what everybody's looking for and what everybody's involved in, because sometimes you never know when this guy over here might have a need for a service that you might have. And in the past, I've had a situation where I've had contractors take some of these seminars, and one individual specialized in plumbing, another in electrician work, and the individuals, a general home builder, the individuals got together and they shared business back and forth. So I like to work the small business end and try and see what you can get out of it, up and beyond those things that you're not really expecting to get out of it. Now, my background goes back, after I got out of the military, the government paid my way to college, and I went to Washington, graduated from Washington University, and started an accounting firm from scratch. And today there are 12 of us in that firm, and I'm excited because my son's been working with us for 5 years, so it's kind of neat to see a succession in that situation. I know Stoke worked with his father when his father owned the lumber company before he passed, and I'm certain that Don found it to be very exciting to have his son grow up and develop the business, and Stoke took it another couple, 3 steps beyond that. So what we're looking at doing is finding out what the other individual can do, and perhaps what we're going to look at, I'm going to go through a business profit and loss statement and understand what kind of expenses you're going to be running up against. And I think from your aspect of it, starting a new business, kind of understanding what the expense situation is going to be is going to help you put together the necessary financial information that the bank is going to want to need when they loan you money or help you expand your operation. So we're going to kind of talk about some of those things, and we're going to talk about some of the tax law that is in place right now that affect the wage situation, and how the government has really put the squeeze on individuals not using independent contractors, but wages and W-2s. And we're going to talk about the cost that's involved. And I think it's important understanding the cost of all the different factors that you're involved in, so that you can properly figure out what kind of fee structure you need to charge for the services that you rendered. Now, in the chiropractic business, you have an office manager.
That would be me,
So you're doing it all at this particular point in time.
except for the actual adjustments. The doctor.
Okay. Okay. And Juanita, in your situation, you have some employees? Just you? In your situation, it's just you? Okay. But we're going to talk about some of those things in case that you run into any of those situations as your business grows. You're going to look to hire employees, and it's important to know how much the cost of that employee is going to be. So that's what we're going to look at. And in analyzing the business profit and loss statement, and I left lots of room for you to take notes on, and because sometimes there's a particular area that you might be interested in that we can tweak to give you an idea or two. But the first area we talk about is receipts. And receipts is the taking in of money for services rendered. Now, in your businesses which are service businesses, you don't have to worry about sales tax unless you sell a product. You might be selling hair care product, you might be selling vitamins or different items that you might have in that chiropractic operation. And if that's the situation, you are required to have a sales tax number, and with that sales tax number, you're allowed to buy wholesale and then mark it up and charge the customer sales tax. That sales tax is your responsibility to forward to the state of Missouri, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Stoke's business sells to the end user, which is, for the most part, the client who comes in and buys lumber and supplies, and he charges sales tax to those individuals, and he is responsible to the state of Missouri to pay a sales tax. In your situation, you might be doing a service, you might be charging on an hourly basis for the services that you're rendering, and you most probably will not sell anything. Is that correct?
That's right.
Are you going to be pretty heavily intense in equipment needs? Is the equipment you need going
No.
to be the customers that you're going to, or yours?
It's going to be mine.
Okay, so you're going to have a significant investment in equipment that you purchase.
Yes.
Okay, but basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing labor and so you're not going to be in need of sales tax. So you have your receipts, and you want to keep a good record of your receipts, a good journal of your receipts, and against those receipts you might have some either returns or some allowances that you might give an individual, or AKA a refund. And what is going to be the end result of that is going to be what we call the gross profit. Now, from the gross profit, we subtract the merchandise that is bought for the resale. So if I'm Stoke and I'm selling a board for $10 and that board cost me $7, then I am going to make a gross, what they call a gross profit on that board of $3. One of the things that Stoke has to be concerned about is keeping a record of his inventory so that he can get an appropriate cost of that item that he's selling. Again, in your situation, you're going to have supplies, and you're going to have to keep a record to make sure that you don't have any supplies pilfered or anything. Juanita, you might have a situation in which you might have, even though your products are frozen, you might end up with some items that might, for whatever reason, get damaged or not work out. You want to,
Or too old.
Too old.
Said they're too old. I picked them out if they look bad.
Okay. So in that situation, that's all part of the inventory calculations that you make to determine just what it is that the cost of the material that you're selling or the goods that you're selling is going to be. And when we take what you sell minus your costs, you're getting what they call the gross profit. In operating expenses, I'm going to go through different operating expenses to give you some kind of ideas on what items can be taken as a deduction and what items may not. So the first item that I'm looking at is the advertisement. And I go back in the very beginning when we were talking about advertisement, we were talking about newspaper advertisement, yellow pages, and radio and TV. Today, the situation has reversed a lot, where I'm seeing more and more businesses not using the yellow pages for their advertisement, doing a lot of work on their internet and programming for their internet, and newspaper advertisement still is pretty predominant, and you see lots of ads in the newspaper, but a lot of it is technical type advertisement to bring people into your business. Now, in your business, what's the best form of advertisement for you?
Word of mouth.
And that cost? Is that
It's the same.
same for you? So you don't have to spend any money for word of for
Well, I could
advertisement.
improve on it as far as advertising, but if one customer tells the other one, oh, go down there and get that, it's really, really good, or she does a good job, or whatever, you know. And word of mouth has been my best advertising all these years.
Okay. In your situation, to go after the customers that you're talking about, are you going to go in the trenches to dig out those customers? Going to go to different businesses? Is there any kind of advertisement you're using?
Right now, the only advertising I've had is business cards. I
Okay.
plan on, it's very tough to get into some of these shops because they don't want you to see their processes. So I'm gonna have to break in, I'm gonna start with a letter. I'm just gonna catch their eye first, go around and introduce myself after that. That's my plan.
Okay. Stoke, from your end of it?
Word of mouth.
Okay. Now I'm just going to tell you a little story. I go to Healing Hands. Hands are my chiropractor. They mostly Ryan, because I have a problem with my back and he's strong enough to do it. One thing that I notice is when the city of DeSoto has an event like the September Fest, their marketing tool is that they will set up a booth
We've
and
done
they
that
will
too.
talk to individuals. And that seems to be very successful from
We've
there.
done that quite a bit, yeah.
Pardon?
We've done that quite a bit.
Have you had success with that? Is there any other types of advertisement that you do?
Well, in the past, we've done mailings, like in the area.
Mass mailers?
Mass mailers, uh-huh.
Okay.
That wasn't as successful, though.
It
I
wasn't?
think going out and actually doing the, we call it health screenings.
Mhm.
We get more of a turnout that way besides the word of mouth.
And so you kind of look at events. I know I had an individual who was in one of these classes who was a photographer. And we were talking, and he said, I'm trying to build up my business. And I said, Festus is having a wedding fair. So he says, how do I get involved in that? So I gave him the Chamber of Commerce phone number. He called up the wedding fair. And the last night of the seminar, he came in, he goes, darn you, I did the wedding fair. I'm double booked. Because the volume was so great, he double booked himself. And so looking at those kind of affairs are important, and it sounds to me, from what everybody has said, that the best form of advertisement doesn't need to cost, not cost an arm and a leg. And in our operations, because I've been around so long, I've been around for 35 years, the word of mouth is tremendous and the referral is tremendous. It's sort of like in Rick's business, everybody knows First State Bank and everybody knows Rick, Dancing Rick. They know him in some places. But that word of mouth, that understanding that whomever you do business with is going to take care of you is very important.
I was just gonna say, advertising in the newspaper is really good, and I did that for a while with whatever sale may be or whatever occasion. I did recently in the Leaders Celebrate Old Businesses, because so many people say, oh, I didn't know you were still in business, so I thought if I put it in there. But the only way you can tell if an ad really, really works, that they mention it, or if you have like a coupon where they come, because the average person will see it in the paper, and oh yeah, I want to go there, and then lose the paper or forget about it and never get there. So you don't know whether it may touch a lot of people, but you don't know what it's going to bring. Whereas the word of mouth, they come in and say so-and-so gets this. So.
What other people have said to me about advertisement, radio, newspaper, along that line is you can't just do it one time. You've got to do it a couple times before it sticks. And so a lot of times that repetition of that advertisement helps. Another gal had talked about couponing, or some say Groupons, in today's market. And I think in that situation, it's something you have to analyze to see just how much of a discount you're going to give and what kind of markup you're making on the product. But it's a situation where there are a number of ways to get that free advertisement and that free marketing. I know being on Main Street, there's a lot of times parades and different things on Main Street that sometimes will get people to introduce your business to that area. And I think involvement, one of the things that the bank does a lot of is getting involved in just about every community event that there is. So if there's going to be Septemberfest, you'll know that State Bank is going to be down there talking to individuals, trying to show product, trying to help with needs that are going on. So a lot of times businesses will look at a certain percentages to allocate for advertising, but I think that cost has gone down tremendously. And I've noticed now coming back that the Yellow Pages have cut their costs, especially with the other Yellow Book and et cetera, et cetera. So I think the main thing in your situation, only kind of advertisement that's going to help you out a lot is in the trenches and trying to get those individuals to work with you. Next area I want to talk about is car expense. because individuals don't know what they want to do with the car expense. And there's a couple of different ways to calculate the car expenses. There's a situation where you can take 56 cents a mile on your vehicle, plus the interest on your vehicle. I say car, it could be truck, plus the interest on that vehicle. Or what you can do is you can take the actual cost of the car or truck, depreciate it over 5 years, 7 years, etc., plus gas, insurance, repairs, etc. Now, a lot of times people will say to me, Werner, what is the best way to take as a car allowance? And of course, car allowance doesn't mean that you can take the deduction from your home to the business. Unless you're going from home to a client, the main travel is to the business. That is not a deductible mileage. But people say to me, what's the best way to take as an automobile deduction? Now, I believe in frugality. And when I buy a car, I have a nice Lincoln down on the parking lot that I bought 2 years old. So I take a car that would normally be, I guess, around 40,000, bring it down to 18 to 20,000. And what I do with that vehicle is I take the depreciation and actual expenses on it. But let's just say I buy a vehicle, and that vehicle costs me $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000, and it gets really good gas mileage on it. It doesn't cost me a lot to run. If I get 20 miles to the gallon, and I'm getting 56 cents deduction from the government, that's $11.20 I can take as a subtraction. Gallon of gas now in DeSoto was $2.83. Wow, a bargain. But if you can get good mileage to your vehicle, and it's not going to cost you as much to operate on, the mileage is the better way to run. Or maybe you're going to go around to different venues that are going to have something that is applicable to your business. So you want to use that. In your situation, you're going to do a lot of running around to try and entice people to do business with your operation. And if you do some running around for him, you can take her mileage as a deduction also. Okay?
What about driving to places for supply, or you have those delivered?
Anything that you go to, now if you go from home to a supplier, that mileage from home to the supplier is deductible. And then back, because you got to get back. Okay? So, and Ms. Chiropractic would have a situation if she goes to different seminars, if she goes to different venues to advertise or market or anything along those lines, that mileage is deductible. If you go out to Chamber of Commerce meetings or put out flyers or anything along that line for your business, anything that is business related, you want to take a record of. Now, how do I keep a record of that? I just get a calendar and I mark down where it is that I was going and approximate mileage. I know that can be a pain, but you can do that.
So you're saying, like, I went to a food show up in St. Louis today?
Yes.
So I go up and back and put mileage on that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. She might be going to a seminar out of town, and she might drive up to the airport. And the mileage to the airport and the parking would be deductible. So, from your home to your business location is not deductible. Okay? Any other any other questions on vehicles? Again, I think the other thing is interesting is the fact that you can either take the miles or the expenses and depreciation, but one deduction that is allowable is the interest that you're paying on the financing of that car. Now, Stichling, you said I can take depreciation. What is depreciation? Depreciation is the gradual decline in value of an item. And what's that mean? If I buy a vehicle for $10,000 and the government says I can take an equal write-off over 5 years, that means I can take all my expenses for the vehicle plus $2,000 as a reduction in the value of that truck. And I can do that, say, for 10 years. Now, I'm not giving you exact science, I'm giving you a general hypothetical situation how that works. And that same principle will also work on machinery and equipment, which we'll talk about down the road. Okay, commissions and fees. If you pay any commissions to salesmen, or if you pay any fees to any organizations, it's a deductible item. And I'm going to tie in the commission end of it with what is called contract labor. And what is contract labor compared to an employee? And the government has really been strict on contract labor because what they're trying to get out of individuals is the state unemployment tax. So in your situation, you're doing your own work, but let's just say you contract somebody to clean your shop. And if that individual cleans other shops, then it's possible that that person will be a contract laborer. In your situation, if you have an individual who is doing work for you 40 hours a week, not going to work to be an independent contractor. This room needs to be painted, Rick, and what I want you to do is I want you to paint it the same color as it is. I want you to do it when you want to do it within a certain time parameter. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You're going to paint other places, do other places. Then Rick can be an independent contractor because I'm not telling Rick what to do. But if I say, Rick, be here at 8 o'clock, here's the bucket of paint, here's all the tools, this is exactly the way I want it, and I have specifications along that line, then Rick is an employee. Now, why is the state especially getting hard on independent contractors? Well, number one, if I'm an independent contractor and I'm getting paid for that work, I'm having to pay what is called self-employment tax, aka Social Security tax, on the fees that are being paid to me. Break that down a little bit. I'm paid $1,000. The self-employment tax is a little bit better than 15%. I get paid $1,000, $150 of my money has to go to the Social Security Administration. If I am working for Rick as an employee, Rick's going to pay half of my Social Security, which is 7.5%, and I'm going to pay the other 7.5%. In reality, people don't like to mess around with employees. It's a pain to do all the record keeping. It's a lot easier to say, here's $1,000, you're on your own. But it doesn't always work that way. And what's happening now, as the state is saying, is for a new business, we're charging 3.5% of state unemployment. And if we have all these independent contractors running around who pay no state unemployment, they don't get any unemployment either. If we have all these guys running around as independent contractors, we're going to lose a lot of money. Whereas if Stoke pays me $10,000, he's going to pay $350 of money into the state unemployment pool so that if I'm ever laid off and I go to collect unemployment, I can get it. As an independent contractor, I have no recourse to get any kind of unemployment whatsoever. Here's the problem. He's an independent contractor for Stoke. And he comes to you, the unemployment division, and says, I'm unemployed. Well, where'd you work at? I work for Stoke. Oh, well, you're denied unemployment, but now they're going to come knocking at his door. And we've seen a significant influx of the state going after those people, trying to get that additional money in. And with the state in this situation, it's all about the money. Now, independent contractors, if you have an independent contractor and you pay him $600 or more, you've got to get his name, his address, social security number. If it's under $600, you're not required by law to issue him a 1099. Okay?
Need his name,
Name, address, and social security number. Wouldn't hurt to get a phone number too. A contractor and an employee. Can I have somebody clean my office who cleans, or my shop, who cleans other shops and pay her and get away with it? Most probably would be okay to do. But something you gotta watch. And I think the thing that bothers me with small business is the fact that it seems like the government is just putting on more restrictions and making it more difficult for the small business. So
I can just tell them, clean it at your convenience, whenever you can.
yeah, and I think we see a lot of this cash society, which I don't know anything about, but I've heard. But, you know, anyway, we won't go discuss depreciation is the gradual decline in value of an asset. And again, if you're going to have heavy duty equipment, it's going to be depreciated over whatever guidelines the government recommends. Insurance. And I'm going to talk to you about the different types of insurance so that you will understand the importance of each one and what they do. And the first insurance that I have here is workman's compensation. Stories. I had an individual who has a big metal bending operation. They make big pipes for oil companies. They have a brake machine that cuts metal, and the guy got his hand caught in one of them, and sliced off part of his hand. Now, workman's comp sets up a grid that says, this is how much money that you're going to be entitled to for your loss. Number two, they make sure that the individual is paid while they're on the mend. And number three, if there is a problem and a dispute, there is legal benefits that workman's compensation has within it that will take it out of the hands of the employer to help resolve some of the more stickier cases. So if you have employees, the workman's comp is something that you'll want to take a look at, and the more technical the work that you do, the more costly that workman's comp is. And I shouldn't say technical, but the higher risk would be a better word, right, Stoke? The higher risk, the more it costs. In my situation, if I stick myself with a pen, it's not going to be near a serious accident. As one of the guys working on one of the trucks delivering sheetrock, and a piece of sheetrock slips and falls and injures that person. Sales usually has a lower cost, and the technical businesses, a lot of them also. In some situations, you want to look at product liability insurance. So the products that you're selling, and you're not going to be involved in that so much, you might have an issue with that because does my shampoo have formaldehyde in it? You know, is this something I need to be cautious of. Personal injury, somebody's in your business and they slip and fall and they get hurt. And maybe when the lawyer comes in here, you might want to talk to him about a little bit about personal injury. A story. I had an individual who had apartment complexes and it snowed. And the individual was supposed to get over there and shovel the snow. And he didn't get over there, and an individual walking on the sidewalk slipped and fell and got injured. And they turned around to sue him. And the defense was, this is an act of God. And your lawsuit is between you and God, not you and me. If he would have cleaned it off and the person would have still fallen, then that's a different issue. But because he didn't clean it off, the issue went to an act of God. I just think these kind of things with insurance are strange. You want to have the contents of your building insured. That's something that's important in the event of fire, flood, storm, or theft. The issue that's interesting now is, what about public unrest, like what's happening in Ferguson? Some insurance companies are not covering. You want to, of course, have your building covered in case of fire, flood, storm, and theft. You want to take a look at life insurance. And there are two different types of life insurance, basic two different types of life insurance. There's a whole life policy, which will provide you with the insurance plus some cash savings, or term life insurance. And the term life insurance is just pure insurance. I'm not going to make a recommendation which one to get, but it's always something that you want to look at. If you're going to get involved in making a loan with First State Bank, and they're going to loan you money, you want to make sure that there's life insurance in case something happens to you, so that she's got the money to pay off the loan to Mr. Rick. Sometimes they'll make that as part of the overall requirements. There is disability insurance. In case you're disabled, you can't work, you get money in so that you can pay the bills. And I'm not saying these are all have to, I'm just describing different types of insurance. There's business interruption insurance in case something happens to your building and you're not able to continue on. And of course there's the medical insurance, which has everybody upside down right now. It's a real ringtail tutor. Other expenses. The interest that everybody's familiar with is the bank interest, but there's also the credit card interest. And then there could be interest to others, family members, who might loan you money.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, sir.
Why aren't the fees on credit cards deductible?
My theory is that the interest on credit cards used for business purposes are.
No. We take credit cards for purchase of merchandise. So we have to pay a fee to use that credit card. 3%, 5%.
But the merchant is.
The fee that is deducted, why isn't that?
If you're paying for that fee, Stoke, it's deductible.
To accept credit card, to the credit card company.
Right, that's an expense of doing business.
The processing fee that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be interest, but it'd be processing fee.
Yeah.
Aren't you taking it as a deduction?
I was told it wasn't deductible.
Not by
It comes off the bottom line.
Yeah,
So are you saying that's the deduction?
yeah. I mean, you're not paying any income tax on that fee to the credit card company.
No.
I'll have Tim give you a call and make sure you get that clear. But that is a deduction.
It gets deducted from our account.
Oh,
I mean,
and from
the
your
fee.
profit and loss.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So is that the deduction?
Yeah,
It's not, you don't have a separate deduction for that.
some people do,
It's
some
a
people
cost of
don't.
doing business.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
No, we're not paying sales tax on anything.
No,
I have a flip side of that, because he just said that also. The government on food stamps has started charging me $15 a month processing fee plus 10 cents a sale
my gosh.
after 25 years. And the people don't pay tax, I mean, we don't sell it to them for taxes. But their answer to me was, you're making profit off that. Now, how can I be making profit if I'm paying it? And I'm not giving it to them, they're taking it out of my bank each month. That just started this year,
Wow.
yeah.
I know, I was looking over, we have an insurance for our company, and then we looked at the Obama insurance cost. Ours is gonna go up about 23%. If I go with the Obama, it's 63% increase. Plus, they got all this $10 fee for this, $50 fee for that, $15 fees for that, and I'm going, Anyway,
But has somebody just told them they could make money off of the person for that?
you know, my assumption, I don't know enough about that aspect of it, but
I mean, in 25 years, this is the first time they have withdrawn money from me for processing.
see, and then what that does is that causes the merchants to increase their fees, and who ends up paying for it?
Consumer.
People. Either that or you don't take it, you don't put it together. So,
Legal and, the next, page 2, is legal, professional accounting fees and lawyers. So if you're spending money to have your taxes prepared, your accounting fees are deductible. If you have a lawyer to consult to help you collect monies or to help you with other issues, they're deductible. The next area is office expenses. And that would include anything that you need to operate your business. But I'm gonna throw in there a home office expense. So I wanna use your situation as an example. If you run the technical operations out of your home, then you can take a part of the cost of your home expenses, which would be interest, real estate taxes, insurance, utilities, trash, water, sewer. You can take a part of that as a deduction against your income. Now, how do we figure out how much of my home is used as an office? If I have 1,000 square foot home and I use 100 square feet for my office, then all those expenses that I talked about, 10% are deductible. Is that clear? Any questions along that line? And the rent that is deductible is the rent that you pay for a building. It's rent that you pay for equipment. So if I am renting a high lift and I pay rent on that, then that's deductible. If I'm renting a building, that is deductible. Pretty well self-explanatory. Repairs and maintenance. To keep up your building, to keep up your location, to do those things that you need to do. Supplies. Supplies could be cleaning supplies, or if you're doing welding, could be welding supplies, gas supplies to weld with. Those things, they can be deductible. In your situation, you have a number of hygiene items that might be considered to be in those supply end of it. In your aspect of it, you have a lot of things that you're using along the same lines to have in your shop towels, paper towels, toilet paper, cups, coffee cups, and all that kind of thing. Taxes and licenses. In looking at the taxes and license end of it, licensure, if you're licensed in a certain city, or if you're doing business in a certain city, in most cases you're required to have a license. So if you're in the city of DeSoto, you're required to have a business license, and that is $25 or something like that. Okay, in your situation, are you located in the city of DeSoto and you have a business license also?
We have a lot of licensed business, merchants, like your shop license.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that's interesting is I have a friend of mine who's involved in backflow inspection, and he goes to different businesses in different towns, and each town is he's required to have a license for that work that's being done. That might be something you might have to look at. Now, in the unincorporated area, for the most part, there's no licensure that's needed, or just maybe a general license along that line, but it's something that you're going to have to look at.
I eventually want to set up a lab.
Do what?
I eventually want to set up a laboratory
Yeah.
for doing the work, you know. And
Then you
that's
just
gonna
might need one license.
You know, that before I'm gonna go to them individually and try and do as much as I can there, but I will have to have a central space. And that's gonna require
Yeah.
permits.
Just let me give you a little bit of advice. If you go into the city of St. Louis, the cost of doing business in the city of St. Louis is more expensive. They have a 1% city earnings tax. They have a 1% tax on wages. The city's just, it's fine. If you're gonna do a lot of work there, if you're gonna do some casual work there, it can be expensive. The payroll taxes, just to review those payroll taxes, there is a federal income tax, federal Social Security, federal unemployment. There is state income tax, state unemployment. Now, I'm going to drop down to wages. And I got an example under wages of what it's going to cost you to do business with having an employee. Okay, first off, the federal income tax. That is a tax that's taken out of the employee's check that you have no expenditure on. But you're required to collect it and turn it into the federal government. The state withholding comes out of the employee's check. You're required to withhold it. You're required to send it on. The state unemployment. The state unemployment is $13,000 for each employee. That's a maximum amount. And usually the cost is 3.51% on starting businesses. Now, in Stokes' situation, he's had a lot of people working for him, and he's paid in, and he's not had any claims, and his rate gets down lower and lower and lower. But Juanita is going crazy, and she's got a lot of claims, and her rate goes up from 3.51 as high as 7% or whatever. And then the federal unemployment tax is calculated on $7,000 of each employee's check, and the rate is 0.6. I think it should be 0.06 because it would be $42 per employee. That has to be paid. The state unemployment and the federal unemployment is a responsibility of the employer. The employer's going to have to pay that to the government. And then also the employer has to pay 7.65% or half of the Social Security. 7.65%. let's take a look at exactly what that means. I'm going to pay Rick or Ed $1,000 for work that they're going to do. Me, the employer, is going to have to pay $76.50 in Social Security taxes. Me, the employer, is going to have to pay $35.10 in state unemployment tax.
Up to that.
Up to the first 13,000. Employer pays $6 in federal unemployment. So to summarize it, an employee paid $1,000, the first $1,000, or up in this situation, up to the breakpoints that we talked about, would pay, an employer will pay $1,176, or 17.6% in taxes to hire an employee. And you see why this makes it difficult for a business to survive if they're labor intensive. It makes it important that you watch very closely your labor costs. And it's also important to understand this as you're figuring out what you're going to charge for those goods and services that you're doing. And that's why you see businesses that have layoffs, because their labor costs are too high. So there are other items that are deductible that you might look at. Alarm services, bank charges, which would be fees that some banks might charge if you have a checking account. You guys don't do that, do you? Oops. Oops. Dues and subscriptions, postage and freight. Now, the goals and objectives of this handout is one in which I'm trying to give you an overview on the operational expenses that you're going to incur in your business, so that you can put together a business plan. One of the things that Ed and Rick are going to ask for, Ed's a lender. Ed's going to want to see what your game plan is. What's your pro forma? A pro forma is a projection. Ed wants to know that you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what it's going to cost you to operate that business. Because the bank does not want your business, it does not want your children, it does not want your husband or wife, it wants its money back with interest. Nothing more, nothing less. This tool helps you to look at the overall situation and determine what it is that you're going to have to charge for the things that you're doing. Now, Juanita said, well, I've got a new charge that has come up in my life, and that's the situation with food stamps.
Texas people. Before no Texas.
So you're floating along, and here comes the government to drop this in. And now you've got a situation that the government is coming around and really being hard on independent contractors. And the government's looking harder for those extra revenue dollars than they've ever looked at before. Is there any questions on any of this material? Or is there any other questions you might have on anything else we talked about?
I am currently renting a desk. That's my office space.
A desk?
A desk. It's a dedicated desk, they call it, for $75 a month.
Okay.
Would that be deductible?
Sure.
In addition to a home office?
Yes.
Rented office?
I would look how that would work. I'd most probably look to take that. A dedicated desk. I have a dedicated couch at home, don't I, Stoke? You got one? We pay for that dearly. Yeah.
It's the corridor 55 in Arnold.
So it's kind of like the location is prime for you to be where you're at?
Yeah, it's a place where I can go and get work done. They have offices too that you can rent for the month, and so.
Mhm.
Owned by
I-
the city.
I-
is the big thing.
Owned by the city.
It's the first of its kind in the state.
Wow.
It
I'm the
just
mayor of the
started.
city.
It
Just
just started.
gave me an idea.
Wheels are turning.
Oh, okay, I haven't.
Room. I get you everything printing.
Wow. See, and back, how many years ago, if somebody would have said, is Wi-Fi deductible? I would have said, what? What is Wi-Fi? What is Wi-Fi? And what about cell phones? How do we take deduction for a cell phone if we're using it partially for business and partially for personal? And the thing on that is you've got to use an estimate to the best of your ability of what percentage of your cell phone is used for business. You know, what you do is I have no friends. That's where it comes in handy. And the same with computers.
Yeah.
You know, that also becomes, you know, a situation of how much of your computer is used for business, although some people say, there's no way in heck I'd let any adult use my computer. I'd let a kid use it because they know how to work it. But
Werner,
that. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing that should be added to the example of the cost of an employee, many businesses pay for medical and 401k, so that can jump it up to 25 or 30%.
Yes, sir. And I was just looking at the nuts and bolts in that business getting started. But they have different types of plans. One retirement plan that a lot of businesses have is a simple plan in which if the employee contributes 3%,
That's what we just
you
said.
can match 3%. And the medical end of it, what are the rules for the medical? How much do I have to pay for medical? No. Can I pay 10% of the medical? Can I pay 25% of the medical? What can I do? And it's pretty well opened up to a situation as long as you're fair and consistent across the board. In your situation, you pay 100% of the medical?
It's a complicated procedure.
Okay. You should have just said no. Then that makes it, but you can do your own plan for your employees. But wages has gotten, in my opinion, to be a pretty complicated situation. Now, following me is going to be the lawyer, and he is going to talk about the different types of business structure. I was going to talk a little bit about the business structures, so I've got about 5 or 6 minutes that I'm going to touch base on just a couple of them. And people say to me, Werner, where should I go first? Should I go to the attorney if I'm looking to set up something like a corporation or an LLC, or should I go to the accountant? And I say you should go to the accountant first, because the accountant can help you make a decision what type of structure is best for you. Then the attorney can build that structure from there on. An example, let's just say in your situation, you say, should I become a limited liability company or an S corporation or a C corporation? Right now, I'm a sole proprietorship. I have a son that's 15 years old that lives in my household. One of the things that I can do as a sole proprietorship is you can pay your son or daughter for work that they're doing. You write them out a check for work done, and you do not have to take out any of those taxes that we talked about. A great way to pay for a college education or help buy a car, help them pay for their expenses. A story, put it together for me, Stichling. I pay my son $5,000 for helping me in my business. I'm a realtor, and that son helps put out signs, helps sell real estate, and he helps me clean up properties. I pay him $5,000. He files an income tax return on $5,000 and pays no income tax. I pay no Social Security, no state unemployment, no federal unemployment, no nothing. Now, I make $20,000 in the real estate business, but I pay my son $5,000. Now I pay income tax on $15,000. Is that a reason to have kids? No. But it helps a little bit. It helps a little bit. If you would set up a structure like an S corporation in this situation, then the $5,000 you pay that child would have to have all those taxes on it that we talked about over here.
As an employee.
As an employee, exactly. I had an individual who had a gas station out in the country and did pretty well. He had 5 children, and he made about $35,000 in his operation, and he only paid income tax on $10,000, which was low income, paid the rest of the boys $5,000, and then got an extra refund back from the government. You know, it didn't take us long to figure out and coordinate that. And he says, you know, there seems to be something wrong with this system. Nowadays we look at it and we just say, that's the way it goes. Seems like it goes that way every day. So a sole proprietorship is easy to start up. You can just start it up. You might need a federal identification number and a sales tax number from the government, but it's really pretty easy to start up. Other types of business that the attorney is going to talk to you about is the limited liability company, which has been around about 25 years or so. And the limited liability company provides you with some protections that is in his realm to discuss with you. An S corporation is a corporation that allows you to make money in your business, pay some wages, and any profits that you have at the end of the year can be distributed to yourself as a dividend without Social Security taxes on it. It's a pretty good benefit. And then the C corporation is a type of corporation that has its limited uses along those lines, but I'm not going to get into the lawyer's area of expertise along those lines. So my thoughts are, if you go to the lawyer and the lawyer says you need a limited liability company, an S corporation underneath that, and you've got a couple of children that you can take as a deduction, most of those attorneys don't understand that. Does that make sense? Okay. So I was going to tell a lawyer joke, but I'm on tape.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, well, I can't. I'm on tape.
It's a record, I know.
So anyway, any other questions about anything else? Yes.
I was just wondering if by chance I ever brought anybody else in and had them like rent a chair. That's what a lot of beauticians do. So then they're on their own. You don't have
Correct.
to pay unemployment or anything.
Correct. They're just renting from you.
So that would probably be the way to go.
I don't know. You know, we do a number of salons, and the other part of it is from the standpoint that they will get a percentage of the action that person does, because in this situation, the salon has a reputation. And on that reputation comes walk-in business that the person normally wouldn't get. So I think it's a situation that I'd look to, if it's an established beautician and she comes in and has her own clientele, I could see the rent on that aspect of it.
Right.
But if I'm a new young person
Right.
and I have no real following and I get business as a result of your reputation, my thoughts along that line, that you might want to look at a different venue on doing that. Does it make sense? Okay. Any other questions? They're going to break till about 8 o'clock, Rick,
Take a few minutes,
and then
take a break.
you're going to
Stretch
get
your legs,
the,
and the restrooms are right around the corner, just down the hallway on the left. And with everybody here, we'll go ahead and get started. Everybody get plenty to drink. There is coffee, there is water.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and get started. We appreciate Werner for being here and sharing his information with us. And the second half, we're very honored to have Darren Suggs here tonight. He's with Roberts, Wooten, and Zimmer, LLC, and they're local out of Hillsboro, Missouri. And they've done, Mr. Roberts, I guess, has been a great, I guess, addition to the Hillsboro community. And him and his family have been here, and he's certainly done a lot for the city of Hillsboro and Jefferson County. And the law firm is very well known in the county and throughout the region for helping people and helping business. And I want to just turn it over and thank you so much for coming. Like I said, you taking the time out of this your busy schedule to come visit and share your information with us about the types and of businesses that are out there, so we can kind of enlighten us as we get started in your business or keeping your business going. So I'm going to turn it over. Let's give Darren a big round of applause.
Thank you, Rick. I do feel guilty because when I learned that I had an extra hour and a half or so, I promptly went to the courthouse grill, ordered a sandwich, and watched the last 3 innings of the Cardinals. So it was a good ending. Thanks for coming. This was set up, and a lot of my materials are set up like a regular lecture. I want you to take a pre-test, and so but I think the whole point is not, for me to know how much you know. The whole point is for you. We have a couple hours together. I'm a resource for you. I want you to pick my brain as we go along here. Stop me if you have questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer something, I'll get you to where I'll tell you how to go find the answer to it. I know why a lot of you are here. I know that a lot of you maybe have aspirations of starting a business, or you started a business, you may want to expand, or you thought you figured out you've bitten off more than you can chew, and you want a little help here, and it's not a problem. Mr. Stichling was absolutely right. This is your opportunity to come in and basically get some free words from a lawyer. We're not going to call it advice because technically, not because I need to get paid for it, but because technically you're not my clients, and if I'm not giving you legal advice, because I don't know your individual circumstances or cases, I don't want to tell you something, and then you go implement it in the real world, it turns out to be wrong, and then you're asking me why I told you that. That being said, I'll do all I can to answer your questions. I want to be as open as possible, and I'm here for you tonight. So we'll relax, and we'll go as long as it takes tonight. I know it's a Tuesday night. I know you're giving up a lot of your time for this. If we don't go till 10 o'clock or 9:30, excuse me, that's fine. With that being said, there's quite a bit of material to cover, and so we'll get through it. But again, stop me if there's any questions you might have. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I do want to know a little bit about each of you. If we have a small enough class, we'll take advantage of that. I've been practicing here in the community for about 10 years now with the same law firm. Do a lot of different types of law. I do a lot of domestic law and a lot of real estate law. I'm also the attorney in the firm that does most of the corporate work. I do, set up people with LLCs, occasionally S corps. People who run small businesses will come into me and ask about contracts, about all sorts of stuff. And so I do have some experience with this, and I enjoy this type of work. We all have jobs that sometimes you like and sometimes you don't. I really enjoy advising clients, small business clients, because I can do a lot proactively. I can give them advice. They can come to me before a problem exists, and I can tell them how to avoid the problem. And that makes them money, and it makes them happy. And so it's a part of my job I really enjoy. And so I enjoy getting the opportunity to speak with you all tonight about these things. Let's go around the room. I want to know a little bit more about each of you. I know a little bit about Rick. Okay. But what's your name? Why you're here?
Well, actually, I came just to get a little bit more knowledge
Okay.
on business. It's actually my I work for Barnhart Chiropractic, and it's the doctor that owns the company and everything, but he kind of wanted me to come in and just see if I can maybe learn a little bit.
That's pressure. So you have to go back and report to your
I have
boss?
to report back to him, yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
But it sounds like from what Warren had said earlier, he's on the right track, so,
Good.
yeah.
Good. You'll find that people who are really smart and they've gone to school for a long time in certain, and I'll call out doctors, not just, but doctors especially, they go and they know how to fix your knee, but they have no idea how to run a business, and that's okay. And that's why professionals exist, to help them. But it's when people bite off more than they can chew, and they think they know something, and then they embark on something and they're in trouble. So your doctor is smart, or your chiropractor is smart to send you, and you proactive and get some knowledge. Ma'am, what's your name?
Juanita Akers, and I have a frozen food business, similar to the Swan Truck, but it's stationary.
Interesting.
And I've been, in October, I start my 26th year of being in business.
Goodness gracious, where are you based out of?
DeSoto.
Fantastic.
And the reason I came is similar to her, to get more information, but my training wasn't in business. I did school, I worked in offices, but not run businesses, so see what I'm doing right or wrong, or that would.
You know, food trucks are all the craze. I know that's not frozen, but food trucks are all the rage now, so you're ahead of your time.
No. Already been around a long time, but I don't serve food, it's
Right.
frozen, they take it home to fix it yourself, but it's stuff that they like to eat out, and they can come get it from me.
Interesting. Okay. Lisa?
Lisa Bone. I have a beauty shop and it's just me. It's very small, but it's intimate, let's say.
You work with sharp objects, so.
That's true.
You have liability concerns.
Right.
My wife burns herself with her curling iron about every other day.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Not a good thing.
Your name?
34 years.
A couple of years.
Okay.
And it's impressive that even after doing all this, you're still here.
Yeah.
What brings you in?
Well, I figured I could pick up a few pointers. You know, I knew most of the stuff Werner said, but there are a couple things I didn't know that he fine-tuned that gave me some pointers. And so that's why I decided to come to these sessions.
I'll readily admit that every time I meet with a client, I always refer back, because I know I can't remember everything. And the lawyer says it's all up here, he's not a very good lawyer. It's always good to go back and know, and you've obviously figured that out, so glad you're here. Kevin?
Yes. I am getting into business for the first time.
In what business, I'm sorry?
I'm going to do what I'm calling consulting and analysis.
Okay.
I worked in an electroplating shop for 26 years, and it had a fire back in February. And I just got done helping them clean it up in August. And I want to do for other plating shops and metal finishers what I did for him, which is analyzing tanks, doing safety programs, compliance, regulatory, waste treatment.
And you want to do it on your own, maybe set up your own company, perhaps?
That's what, yeah. I've already started it, and I did it as an LLC as of September.
Okay.
So,
Allison?
Allison?
My eyes are I'm getting old. I'll admit it.
Well, I'm here with him. I'm helping him get his business going.
Excellent.
So I'm just here. Be an extra set of ears for.
I'm here with First State Community Bank.
Gotcha. You helped me find this place. You're helping out.
Yes, I'm Debbie Kettler, and I'm the branch manager at our Imperial location.
Excellent, excellent. You know, I just thought about this. I actually just started an LLC for myself too. My grandmother passed away a couple years ago. We've had a family farm for 160 years, and so it was owned by my dad and my aunt. And my brother and I decided to buy out my aunt's share, and so to do that, we decided to form our own companies. And now my brother and I own it with my dad, and we're on this LLC now. And so, I'd always given out advice before, but I went through the whole process by myself and set up my own company. It was a great experience because, I learned a lot, and I was answering the same questions for my father and my brother as I was for clients. But when it's family, I took special care. It was my company, and I run the company. And it's been a great experience and made me a better lawyer because I'm doing it for myself now every month, and I know what it takes. So Rick gave me a good introduction. Like I said, I've been practicing here for a while. And we're going to go ahead and start out. And it's funny, I dug up some old information that it goes along with this lecture. I think I gave a similar lecture about 5 years ago, and some of the information I have is a little more detailed. And so if we're going off this and you have a question that's a little more complicated, I may actually have the answer to it already. So don't be afraid to ask it. Does anybody have any questions before we get started on the actual materials? This stuff, I remember first day in law school, I took business organizations class, and these all look like, it was like a foreign language to me. I had no idea what all these things meant. And when you work with them a lot, you start understanding, but it takes a while. And as to what they all, they do for you. And the bottom line is, there are pros and cons of each one of them, and some of you are familiar with that. What most people come in my office and they'll sit down. The first question they ask, they want to protect themselves. They want to protect their personal assets. You're starting this company, and you think, man, if I screw something up, am I going to be kicked out of my house the next day? And that's a very viable concern. People have kids, they have mortgages, they have lives. And one slip on on some slick concrete outside of your business, and that can change things. And you've dealt with that for 30, 40 years or whatever. And so, but people, when they go to start companies, they don't, and I'll just look at them kind of going off the script here, but there are some sole proprietorship. If you do something like that, what kind of protection does that give you? How does that protect your personal assets? Does it give you any protection at all? It doesn't. All that is putting a sign out, or not even that, and just saying, I'm going into business for myself. It's a sole proprietorship. But there are a lot of advantages to that. It's easy. It doesn't cost a dime to get started. Anybody can go out and, assuming you comply with all the local regulations for selling things, you're in business. That's a sole proprietorship. That's all it is. And we'll start there, and we'll go all the way through the corporations, and I'll kind of discuss each one. We'll spend more time on the ones that I think would probably be more pertinent to the interest of the people in here. And I also think that going from the materials, I think Missouri law, to me, favors some more than others, and so I think this is written more for a national audience. And I'll tell you what my opinions are in terms of what would be good and not so good, the advantages and disadvantages. All right. These are the things that you have to think about when you start talking about which of these entities, if any of them, you want to pick, okay? First of all, taxation. Very simply stated is this. I'll make it easy for you. Most of the businesses that we'll probably be talking about and that people in here are interested in setting up and using are flow-through tax entities. First time I heard flow-through tax entities, I thought, what in the hell is that? Okay? All that means is you're paying taxes on business profits just like you've always been doing. You're filing your annual tax returns, and what your profits and losses are reflected in your personal tax returns. Okay? Now there'll be some little bit of caveats, like with an S corp, you might have to file a tax return, not for the money, but just as an annual to tell the government where you are and what you're doing. But it's really important to understand that most of these entities we're talking about are going to be flow-through tax entities, okay? So you're not filing a separate tax return for your business and for your individual tax return, okay? The exceptions to that, the exception of that will be your C corporation. And the C corporation, which we won't spend a ton of time on tonight, because those are your big corporations. Those are your Microsofts, many, more than 50 employees, run by CEOs, shareholders, and things like that. That's really what we're talking about. Okay. Liability and risk. Huge reason you are in here. You're worried about liability and risk. And so you have to look at each of these entities and how they protect you, okay? And what you're doing, the base reason you set up a corporation is so if you get sued, they can sue the corporation. And listen, the first thing people say, well, can I keep them from suing me? No. We sue people all no, we're going to try to sue you, but it makes it a heck of a lot more difficult if you have the protection of a corporation, okay? And the secret to making sure that all the time and money you've set up to set this corporation up, the secret to making it work is to ensure that you keep all the books separate, okay? And we'll touch on this later. The word is piercing the corporate veil. And what that means is you have to keep your assets separate, the corporate assets and your personal assets. You have separate checkbooks, separate everything. Because if the big bad lawyer wants to sue you, and he sues and he sees that, we're using your personal checkbook, and you're paying your employees, you're buying equipment for your store and everything with the same funds out of the same account, then it's not a separate entity. It's going to make it a lot easier for that lawyer to get your personal assets, frankly. So don't spend all the time and money to set up a business if you're not going to utilize it. And the key there is to separate your assets, okay? It's a separate account, separate everything. I might add that one of the first things that will happen when you set up, say it's an LLC, an S Corp, when you set up a corporation, you file with the Secretary of State. One of the first things that happens is we'll get, if you have an attorney do it, you do it yourself, you'll get an FEI, a Federal Identification Number. And that's what, generally that's what the banks want to set up a separate account for your business. So, and that'll happen right off the bat. It doesn't take long. Next consideration, management, decision-making authority. It's really important to think about that when you get started. Starting a business, brothers, your sisters, close friend, that sounds like great. I want to make millions, Sign me up. Well, that's great. But you need to think about who's going to make the day-to-day decision for this company. And there's a lot that goes into that. And depending on the entity, we'll get into what that means, but it's something you really have to think about. Continuity and transferability, how business persists and how it is sold. The pitfall I see as a practicing lawyer is everybody puts a lot of thought in how to start up a business. That's basically the stage all of you are in except you and you. But everyone thinks about how to start a business, but they never think about how they want to wrap it up. And that provision that says how a business is going to wrap up, or the provision in your agreement that says if someone wants out, partners start going at it, or the members or whatever, they can't get along. What's the parachute? How do we get them out of there? What's the procedure for that? It's really important to think about that before you get started. And then the expense and formality, and that's just basically talking about what does it take to start up each of these companies, these entities, and what's it take to keep them going. And that can be all the way from nothing with the sole proprietorship, all the way to major stockholder meetings, in Tahiti for a big company. And it's just, it just depends on what we're dealing with. Do they have any questions yet? Alright. So, and that question, it's a good question, but it just depends on your business. And hopefully, you'll be able to think about your business and what's best for it. And if you have a question specific to your business, this is the one class that I would highly encourage you. I don't mind, if it involves your salon or your frozen food business, ask me. I don't mind tailoring it to your business, my answer. All right. Sole proprietorship. Business is the one and the same as the owner. You see more of these than anything. And you would be flabbergasted. There are people like Hobson Lumber that you guys probably set up in some entity, I assume. There are businesses that have been around as long as Hobson Lumber. They're just sole proprietorships in some form or another. But advantages, unlimited for disadvantages. The owner has unlimited personal liability. He just files his own tax return and shows his profits and losses on there. He controls the business. It's simple, costs nothing to form. It's appropriate for a small setup. I would almost disagree with that. In this sense, it costs to file an LLC, if you do it on a credit card, don't quote me on this, it's about $50 in the state of Missouri. And for that low of cost, and even if a person comes to my office and wants to set up an LLC, depending on how complicated and how many members, I usually charge somewhere in the range of about $450 to $700. And about, like I said, about 50 of that is the filing fee. So, and the major expense is drafting the operating agreement, because that actually takes some time. It's about a 10-page document. But the point I'm making is this. If you're going into business and you're worried about your personal assets and you're committed to doing a business, then I would argue that even though money may be tight at first, a $400 or $500 investment in yourself and your business is probably well worth the money. Now there are cases when it just takes a while to get going, and frankly, if $500 doesn't exist, I understand. Start it up however you can, and you can always change over to a different entity. But there are protections that that are afforded with these other entities that you just don't have with a sole proprietorship or a partnership. And so I would strongly consider setting up as an LLC or a different type of entity if you're getting started up. I just think it's worth the money, and it'd be hard for me to advise someone, to say, I understand, but to say $400 but yet end up losing their house, I would feel terrible if that ever happened to a client of mine. And so that's why I say steer clear of that unless you just have to for financial reasons. The general partnership is essentially the same thing as a sole proprietorship with more than one person. It's simple. And the only problem with it, the other problem with it though, is that taxes could be a bit more complicated. They're both filing, taxes, and so they're going to have to figure out, I guess, amongst themselves how the profits or losses of the company are allocated before they file their personal income taxes. But there's really not too much to a general partnership. There's no, you're not filing documents to form it or anything. It's just you and a person going into business together. That's all it is. All right. Limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships. I'm not going to spend you don't see a lot of these. And here's why. The state of Missouri state of Missouri has some of the most favorable laws for LLCs in the country, in my opinion. There's a ton of flexibility, they're cheap, and they're easy to maintain. And for that reason, I generally advise my clients that it's just a better option than a limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships. This might be a good option if you have people going into business and they're going to have different roles. If you're going to have a person that's going to run the business and a person that maybe just be contributing funds for the business, that's something that you might want to consider. This does require a partnership agreement, and liability will depend on the type of partner you have. Frankly, I think that these goals that you would attain by having a limited partnership and a limited liability partnership can almost always be attained by setting up an LLC, and I think that you're generally better off doing that. As time goes on, courts decide cases, and because Missouri has favorable limited liability company laws, LLC laws, there's a lot more case law. It's been thrashed out a lot better with LLCs as opposed to like limited liability partnerships. And so unless there's just a specific reason and you think that you really want to have defined roles for your partners, it's generally not favored, but there's nothing wrong with it. And as long as it's well written, because it requires a partnership agreement, it's one I'd certainly recommend having an attorney write that up for you if you ever want to do it. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. It's just that they're not usually used in the state of Missouri as much as other entities, but you do see them. Okay. LLCs. All right. I'd say in my practice, when people come in, I bet I set up, out of every 10 corporations I set up, I bet 8 of them are LLCs, and probably more than that. And that goes back to some of the things that I described earlier about how our state laws are very favorable to them. I will take some time to kind of go through the nuts and bolts about what happens when someone comes to my office and wants to set up an LLC. They'll come in, they'll have an idea, we'll sit down and we'll talk about their goals. I'll ask them a few questions. How many people are going to be involved in this LLC? How much capital do you have to start out your company? And I don't ask them that. I ask them that because we want to make sure we're getting the right type of company formed. It's not because each of the members need a bunch of capital to start up an LLC. I ask them, about what happens when there's a disagreement, or how likely do you think that someone else will be coming into the company? There's a lot of questions, and it's a lot more these days. I don't know if any of you have done this. You can go on the internet and you can filing a business entity with the Secretary of State, registering with the Secretary of State, frankly, would probably take you 20 minutes online. Drafting, just registering a company with the Secretary of State, it's really not that big of a deal. However, the way I can earn my money in advising companies that are getting started up, you don't have to have an operating agreement for LLC technically, but it's certainly a lot better to have one. And it's about a 10 to 20 page document that goes over, it thinks about this company. And as you go along, you have to think about what may happen. And if people, like I said, they want to leave, or if things happen, what do we do with the money? How do we wind this up? What happened? And it's important that that's done correctly, because it's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money when things go haywire. Okay? So if someone comes in, they sit down, I ask them a lot of questions. Like I said, I would generally charge probably in the neighborhood of $450 to $700, and that would include the like $50 filing fee. And my assistant and I would get the company, figure out the company name, get that registered with the Secretary of State, and then draft an operating agreement, which is not filed with the Secretary of State's office. It's for the members of the LLC, and they use that, and it's a very, we'll call it an organic document. It's very easy to amend, but the operating agreement will contain all the procedures on how to amend it. What do we do? What if we want to bring someone else in? What if we want to change something? It's all contained in that written agreement. And it's important that once you get a corporation set up, there's some maintenance to it. But the great thing about the LLC is there's very little maintenance to it, okay? It's very simple. If you need to do something, it'll be right in your operating agreement, and you generally don't have to go tell the state of Missouri if you're going to go do something. It's pretty straightforward. And the other great thing is that you can also, depending on your state, in Missouri, we always just say that the term of the company is perpetual. So, you know, I saw in the materials, some of the materials I was reading, some states say they expire in 30 years, but I believe ours always say that they're perpetual until the company is wound up. So these are used very heavily in the state of Missouri, and you know, I don't think I've ever set one up and had someone come back and say, boy, I wish I had done a different type of entity. Now, what I also do, and the other huge question that I ask all my clients, I say, do you have an accountant? Because the other main determining factor that's really important when you're trying to select what business you want, ask your accountant. Because frankly, a lot of these entities we're talking about do the exact same things. We start talking about protecting from personal liability. But the other question is, when it comes to tax time, what's easiest? What's best for the corporation? And so I often, and I think I've called Werner on corporations that he's worked with, and I'll say, Werner, how do you want this? Do you want an S corporation? Do you want an LLC? What's best for this company? And usually they'll tell me, and they'll tell me why. Sometimes there's things that have to do with employment taxes, things of that nature. And so when you're setting this up, have your accountant, if you have one, talk to your attorney, and they'll work together and help you out. And it's really important, again, to note that these do protect you with the shell. These are corporations, and if someone sues, no matter what entity you have, keep your assets apart, and they'll do what they're supposed to do. You can elect, when you set up an LLC in Missouri, you can elect to be taxed as a partnership or as a corporation, including as an S corporation. Missouri's made it super, super easy, and that's another reason people use LLCs. And I don't want to get too complicated, but essentially what it all boils down to, if you set up an LLC, you can have it taxed however your accountant wants it taxed. You just basically check a box, and there's literally a box when you set it up. How do you want this LLC taxed? And you can do it however you want, whatever's best for your business. I spent a little extra time on them, but in Missouri we use them a lot.
You said if we wanted to, we could change entity type. What would that entail? If I wanted to go to a sole proprietorship?
So you set up
It is set up, yeah.
Okay. Well, do you have an operating agreement? Are you set up as an LLC? So you registered as an LLC. Okay. You would, I don't think it'd be a big deal. You would just need to wind up your LLC. You could just file you can just transfer the assets out of the LLC to yourself if you want to sole proprietorship. And then I would, if you want to close the entity or wind it up, the term we use, you would file something, I guess, like the Secretary of State, that it's an inactive, it's no longer an active limited liability company. And I don't think there'd be a whole lot more to it. And then, once you're paying payroll or buying goods, whatever you're doing, you have your own account, and then the money's coming back into your own account, you're a sole proprietor at that point. So yeah, the only problem is you spent a little bit of money incorporating
Right,
not incorporating, but setting up your LLC.
I like the decision I made, especially after listening to you about it, and I think it was the right one. I was just wondering, just in case.
If you, not giving you legal advice, but if you came in here and came into my office and we started talking, we started talking about your goals and what your business is actually doing and what you want. And what I suspect might happen is that it might be better to take your LLC, but improve your LLC and file the documents you need to make it a better limited liability company, and take a look at it and make sure it's doing exactly what's best for you. You've already done the hard part, and now it's just formalizing it and making it, frankly, a better company to suit your business needs.
No, I need the operating agreement. It wasn't required, like you said, but it's necessary.
Yeah, they're very helpful, because people come into me when they have problems, they set up a company, they have problems, and first thing I always say, what's your agreement say? Well, I don't know, I set that up 15 years ago, it's my lawyer, I haven't ever read that. Well, we're going to start now, because that's your governing document, and it's basically, you could look at it as having a contract with yourself or with the people you're working with. I mean, that's what everybody agreed to do, so they've signed off on it, So that's where you'll start. You need answers. It's super essential when other people are involved and there's more than one person to have some good agreement. All right, corporations. And again, this is done for a national audience, so I would probably organize a little different, but legal entity created under the laws of the state, which has its own privileges and liabilities distinct from those of its members. And there's C corps and there's S corporations. C corps are the most formal. I hope that somebody in this room has a reason someday their business expands to the extent that, boy, they need to set up a C corp. This will be the only one we talk about that has double taxation, meaning that corporate profits are taxed, as well as when an individual makes money, a shareholder makes money, those are taxed to them individually as well. As an aside, just because I'll give you bonus knowledge, corporate taxation is it's a huge political issue right now. And I'm not here to take sides, but I'm sure Rick analyzes this. A lot of major successful United States corporations are going overseas to set up operations. America has our tax structure is such that it is true that in industrialized countries, the United States has a high corporate tax rate. And a lot of companies are moving to places like Brazil. A lot of them are moving to Ireland. And was it HP that just moved to Ireland? Because their corporate tax rates are half to 2/3 as much as America. The president has spoken out about it. I can see both sides of this issue. Here's the deal. You get a corporation run by shareholders. Some of you probably, you may get materials in the mail a couple times a year from something that said, hey, you're a shareholder of this. There's a meeting in Los Angeles in 2 months. If you want to, it's like a proxy vote stuff. You've seen all that? You've probably never gone to one of those meetings because it's actually all run by a board of directors. But what I'm getting at is there's a fiduciary duty among shareholders of corporations and among the people, the board of directors, the people who run corporations, to maximize profits. You buy stock in a corporation, you don't buy stock because you just want to make a donation. You want it to get the best, you want as much money as possible. You want your portfolio to do well. And the people that take your money and use it and sink it in these companies, they're paid, and they have a duty to those shareholders to make money, okay? So, they're saying we can save, X $1 million a year by moving our company across overseas. And, some people call it unpatriotic, but they're saying, hey, we have this reason. And the problem is, it's really easy now, because we don't have bricks and mortar anymore. We have computers, and all it essentially entails is renting an empty building for not much money in Dublin, and putting someone in there, but it doesn't really have to be much there. You don't actually have to move infrastructure. You just say, okay, our new corporate headquarters is in Dublin, Ireland, and we're going to save $50 million a year. It's fine, except it costs the United States government, which is already strapped for money, a ton of money, and it creates problems. The other issue is, it's not all bad for corporations. Because yes, the corporate tax rate is high in the United States, but the tax code is so screwed up that many of these huge corporations making huge profits don't pay a dime of tax. What was it? It's a General Electric. I think they went how many years without paying any taxes? And so there are problems on both sides of it, and I'm not taking sides but it's interesting. And we start talking about corporations. We're usually talking about big business, but that's what they are. Does it make sense?
It makes sense from a money point of view.
From a money point of view, but yeah.
Yeah, I hate to see that.
Yeah, I have some personal experience. After I became an attorney, I worked for 3 years in a small business. Actually set up the LLC. I didn't own the company, but I was a general manager of the company, and I sold lumber all over the world. Sold to Israel, China, Italy, Mexico, all those places. And for a while there, we were excited. Mexico is a huge industry, or a huge place we sold lumber to, because they do the same things American companies would do in terms of building furniture and things. Their workers would work for $10 a day. So for a while we thought, boy, that's a big bargain, They're producing these same materials for $10 a day. And that was terrific until China came into play. And then the Chinese factories could do the same thing the Mexican factories could do, and their workers were doing it for $1 a day in wages, and they were so excited to do it, they had to build barbed wire fences around their companies to keep people from coming in because they wanted those jobs so bad. $1 a day. Of course, these are jobs that they'd be paying the American worker probably $80 to $100 a day to do. And so it makes you think we're certainly in a global economy now. So. This is the second most popular corporate entity that we'll use. A lot of accountants like this, and it has to do with employment taxes. But basically, S corps or corporations, these materials make it look like it's almost as difficult as a C corp to set up. It's really not. They're really not that hard to set up. And they're a flow-through tax entity, just like your LLCs. One tax return for the owner-operator, the S corp, it all just flows through his personal income tax return. And they're a bit more formal than LLCs, but they're not hard to set up. They're not expensive to set up. And many small businesses around here are S corporations. Are any of you are any of you in here, let's see, you set up an LLC, what are Thompson Lumber?
Yes.
S Corp, yeah. A lot of small businesses are. And you're not set up yet.
So,
You're sole proprietorship at this point, okay? And you're setting something up? Not yet, don't know, depends, okay. The S Corp does provide limited liability for the shareholders. The income attributable to the shareholders is not subject to self-employment taxes. We can go through some of these things. The disadvantages of an S Corp would be, there are the formal organization requirements. There are some limits on who can be shareholders. You can't have it more than, I think it's still 75 shareholders. It's a little bit harder to move assets in and out of the business as with other entities. And there's a few other things. There's a few hidden tax liabilities, but really, it's more of an accounting issue than anything. But you do see a lot of these. They work well. They still provide all the liability protection of these other companies do, and a lot of accountants favor them. All right, I think we've gone through all of the types of businesses. And so we'll get a little bit more into sort of the fun part about, you can ask me questions and we'll talk about what's best for your individual businesses. So before we go on, did I confuse you sufficiently as far as the business types? It's really not as complicated as it first looks, because you're just protecting yourself, you're figuring out with your accountant which is better from a tax standpoint. And the main thing is to talk to talk to your partners and figure out what your goals are long term from the business, and that'll give you a good idea of what you want to set up. All right. So we're going to choose an organizational type. How do we do this? Establish a business plan. You think about the business. I said earlier, when someone comes to my office, that's the first thing I ask them. What's your plan? What do you want to do? Where are we going from here? And I won't read this, but you can see what the next questions are. Tell me again what your business is.
Chiropractic.
And you're here for, is he, or is he, right? Is he set up as an entity at this point?
I want to say he's I think it's sole proprietor, I'm not positive.
A sole proprietor. We could really scare him. We won't do that.
She's gonna ask you tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you which one it is.
Yeah.
It's either that or LLC, and I'm not positive which one it is.
A lot of them are. Do any of you have specific questions about your businesses at this time you want to ask me?
As far as the taxation on the LLC, I'm pretty sure I marked off paying taxes like an S corporation. So when it comes time to file, I'm just gonna put it on my regular personal income tax.
Yeah.
That's all I'll have to do. There won't be anything.
That's all you have to do, except there's a form, and it's called, you might know, Rick. There's a special, when you file your taxes, it's like an attachment to your, and I can't remember the letter. Do you do your taxes yourself?
Yeah.
It's not hard, you can do it yourself, but there is a separate, I can't remember the letter off the top of my head for some reason, but I think you file that with your taxes. Basically lets the government know that what you're doing. But yeah, you're just filing one tax return, bottom line. Yeah.
Well, we file two. Well, I mean, we have to file, March.
You're filing
As an S.
the form, probably the form 1120.
I don't recall the
Yeah,
date.
yeah,
But we have to do it at the same time as C does.
yeah,
But there's no money transacted.
right. Right, and that's why I was you're letting the government, and I think that's exactly what the one for the LLC does. It's reporting, you're letting the government know, but it's still a flow-through tax.
Right.
Yeah.
You see some of them within embedded in the tax return personally, and then you can do a separate, I don't think it's a 1035 or something that has a separate LLC tax return.
Schedule C is one, depending on how you set up as an LLC, there's other forms that are embedded in your personal return.
Right.
Through the top, back to the top page.
Yeah, yeah, you see them on there. It's pretty self-explanatory, but like everybody else in here, you know, looking at tax form is not fun and it's confusing, and I understand. All right, well, what other questions do we have? I have to talk all day, and I don't like doing it. I'd rather let you all talk. So,
Do you have to have a lawyer actually to file for your LLC?
you don't.
But do you have to have one for the operating agreement is what I?
No.
No.
You don't. The problem is, and I wouldn't discourage you, except I always tell people, you know, they'll come in and they'll lament the fact that my billing rate's high or whatever, and I said, well, if you broke your leg, would you fix it yourself? Well, no. Well, why do you think you can do that yourself? Or, you know, that being said, setting up a company is not as complicated, and it is something that a layperson can do, okay? That being said, an operating agreement, and lawyers may work with you, and lawyers get better about this, but if you went into a lawyer's office and said, I've already filed my articles of incorporation, I've already registered, I've already obtained my federal identification number, but I think I need an operating agreement. And so all I need you to do specifically is that. You know, and if that was the case, then you might be able to do something. You would achieve your goal of spending less money on an expensive lawyer, but you'd still get the advantage of having a trained eye look at your operating agreement, draft it for you, and then you have the peace of mind. You can also know that if there's an issue, you've probably eliminated a lot of expensive issues down the road, and you're going to have a better document. And so, for the most part, I mean, frankly, I understand there are businesses that just have no money when they're starting out, and it's day by day, and it takes a while. And so, yeah, an extra few $100s means a lot, and I understand that. But it's better, and if you're set up, and eventually, you go to a lawyer and try to get that operating agreement established, that's something you can do. Like I said, it's not something you file with the state, but it's an agreement that all the members have a copy of. And that's your contract. That's what you go back to and refer to when you don't want to know how to do something. So, no, you don't have to. Really, it's funny, in my business, it's weird. Basically, you don't have to have a lawyer to do anything in court. Technically, it's called, the Latin term is pro se. The person is acting pro se. They're acting on their own volition in court, and they can do that. The problem is, courts are complicated, and it's very difficult for a layperson to do things. I do a lot of, and this is an aside, but I do a lot of domestic law, divorce law, and paternity law and things like that. And you feel terrible for people because they're going through a very tragic, emotional time in their lives. They're trying to divide their stuff and their kids, and it's awful, and bad things are happening. And what happens is they have absolutely no money at this point for whatever reason. And they need to get divorced, though. There might be domestic violence or things happening, and these two people need to get divorced. When people come to my office, I mean, frankly, the average divorce probably costs between $5,000 and $7,000. And when somebody, generally I charge around $2,000 just to take the case, it's expensive. But they don't have any money, and so they go to the clerk's office at the courthouse and they say, I need to get divorced. What do we do? And they give them forms, and they fill them out. And it's difficult to even fill out the forms. And then they file them, and they go in front of the judge, but the judge's hands are tied because there are certain things that have to be done in divorce, and these poor people, they don't know it. I don't blame them. I would have no idea to know had I not gone to law school and practiced for a long time. And so it's a real problem within the courts when you have pro se clients, because it's not their fault, but they have nowhere to go, and they can't get things to the court because they're not capable of drafting documents that have the requirements that judges need to sign off on to make it a formal final judgment. And so it's an issue for this. This is one of the things that could probably be done by a layperson, but if it's done by a lawyer.
You know what I'm saying?
I made the mistake. I should have brought one. And I would be happy, more than happy, to send a sample one to anyone in there. I caution you, be careful. Like anything else, if you have just a little bit of knowledge and have a form and you fill it out and you think you got something, you may, but you also may have something that's not worth the paper it's written on. But that being said, you can go online and find a million examples of operating agreements. And my job, my duty as an attorney is to find the right ones and to craft ones that fit the needs of my clients. And we have forms, but I take those forms and I have to read every paragraph, and I take out a lot for clients and I add things to them and I tailor them to their individual needs. And it takes a good lawyer, it'll take some time to do. It will. I mean, I could just turn out a generic one and turn it in, but I wouldn't be doing my client a service and I wouldn't be earning the money they're paying me, because it's a legal document and it needs to be done correctly. Usually takes, another good thing about these entities, when people come in, it's the one thing, people get so mad at me and all lawyers because it takes a while, the whole process, the court process takes a long time. Depending on I can get these set up within a day or two. When people come out, it's one of the only things that I can actually do within a day or two. It's pretty straightforward. It may take a while to draft the operating agreement, but I can get them incorporated very, very quickly and get them going. And then they can get their federal ID number, they can get a bank account, and they can go from there. One of the other things is, and I didn't touch on it earlier, a lot of people ask, well, what requirements are there? Do you have to file something with the state every year for this particular type of entity? Those things change sometimes. It's always good. The Secretary of State has a good website. Usually they're good about sending you reminders, telling you what you need to file. There's hardly any follow-up with an LLC. It's pretty straightforward. And there's hardly any paperwork that's involved with the state once you set it up.
No. When I set it up, I went through law firm in Clayton only because they run the internet for $48
Sure.
for a registered agent.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was $50 to get it going. And my understanding is according to them, I'll be paying them a yearly fee to keep that status.
All right, great. So glad you brought that up. Okay. Registered agent. Do people know what a registered agent is? A registered agent, when you set up a company, I think any of these companies, you have to name a registered agent. When you file your articles of incorporation, say who's your registered agent, where's your registered agent address. What it is, it's an address so they can find you. So if someone wants to sue you or send information to the organization, you can get online with the Secretary of State's website. There's a registered agent. Every company has a registered agent. Okay. A lot of times it can simply be the person that set up the company, the owner. So now sometimes they don't want to be the registered agent. They want to make it really, all it really does is make it a little bit harder for them to find. But if they serve by law, if your registered agent receives mail and is served, and that's good enough service to sue the company, sue the corporation. Okay, that's what a registered agent is. So you set it up, and you're paying a law firm yearly to be your registered agent. You're paying them to have A mailing address. Okay.
My original question for all this is if I want to change registered agents, or is registered agent really just initially a one-time thing?
Yeah, I think that you'd be able to just call Secretary of State up, and I think that you can very informally just give proper notice, but change your, I don't think it's a big deal to change your registered agent at all. Talk to and I'm not advising, talk to the attorney, the firm that sets you up, and talk to them about that, and what your agreement with them is. I don't know if you're beholden to have them as your registered agent for a number of years. We don't charge people to be the registered agents. And I wouldn't want to do that. What that would mean is, I could be the registered agent, but if they got sued, the company or what, I would get the summons, and then I would be the registered agent. The problem is it would put responsibility on me to make sure I get that to them. And I wouldn't want that, because if something happened and for some reason I didn't see it, and then they didn't get noticed that they were being sued, and somebody took a default judgment, that could create a lot of liability for me and my firm. So I don't think it's very common for law firms or the organizers to be that. And they're probably set up differently, where that's how they make money. It's something they do, and that's fine. But that's what that is.
But he needs to have a registered agent?
Yeah, with every company with the state, it'll have. You can go up. I don't know if this is hooked in the internet. We ought to just go to the Secretary of State's website, and you can just go to corporations and look up, search any corporation, and it'll come up, and your articles of incorporation will be on there, and then it will include your registered agent, and it'll say whatever law firm that is, which is fine. I mean, that's something they do. It's a service they're providing. You pay them to do, so that's okay. There's also, you ever heard the term fictitious name? Fictitious name registry? Yeah, I mean, sometimes a person might have a business and they want to be, SUG LLC, doing business as Freddy's Hamburgers or whatever it is, and you're registering those fictitious names with the Secretary of State primarily so no one else can have that name. A fictitious name isn't providing you with some kind of liability protection or anything like that, but it's registered so if someone else in the state of Missouri is using that fictitious name. But those are also registered with the Secretary of State's website, so you can go in and say what it is, you can say what kind of entity it is, whether it's an LLC or an S corp or whatever. Yeah, look at that. It'd be.
I've been with him long enough. I know what goes on there. No.
Yeah. Other questions. Those are really good questions, and if I did this again, those are things that I should put in the presentation. Any more practical questions about going in, pretend I'm your lawyer, sitting down, something. What questions do you have for your free lawyer tonight? That is your only opportunity.
You should do your benefit.
Does LLCs have to have officers?
Usually, LLCs, they have a ton of flexibility. You set up however you want. They're usually, you have members in the LLC. And you can assign, a lot of times when the LLCs are set up, one of the things in your operating agreement will say, each of these members are starting this corporation and they're putting this much of a capital contribution toward the LLC. I always think it's easier, you don't have to put anything. I think it's easier when people start, so there's something in the bank account, they can put a little bit of money in, so there's something in there just as a place to start. That's usually what I advise people to do. And then, whether profits and losses are shared according to their capital contribution or whether it's split equally, those are all things, and that's why that operating agreement is really important. It's glossed over, and a lot of times people just use a generic one, but you need to think about how it's going to work. And and probably the most important provision is if someone wants to, I'm moving to Florida, I I can no longer be a part of this. You would have that if you had an operating agreement. I don't know what your structure is, if it was like you and several other partners or members of an organization. It could, you know, if someone's husband got a job or wife got a job in Tallahassee, Florida, and they're moving and they're part of this, what happens? How do we, you know, can we vote do we have the first right to do this? Can we vote somebody out? What do we do? What do we do with their assets? And can we buy their interest? And you know, a lot of times the current members will have the first right of refusal to buy someone's interest if they're leaving the corporation or the company. So, just something to think about. What do banks think about LLCs and S corps and all that?
Oh, I think it's the document that represents the company. We utilize those when, if someone applies for a loan or if they want to open a checking account, we now require that the fictitious name be registered before we'll open an account now. So, you know, those are changes that I've seen through the years in the banking industry. For a loan, like I said, we require an operating agreement. We pull and make sure the corporation's in good standing. That means, you know, you register. If it's a C Corp, you register every year. The officers of the corporation and the directors, and we're allowed LLC. Darren talked about the flexibility. You don't have that, but you have the operating agreement that says an operating agreement is. We see that more in loan issues, that if there's more than one member, you know, that's when it gets to be an issue. If there's multiple members and they're not related, and you know, maybe even if they are related, it tells you who's on first.
Yeah, I have seen that. I see that the time that people sometimes want an operating agreement, they go get a loan. And the bank says, well, show me your operating agreement, and it's a document they won't have thought about for a decade. But then they say, maybe I do need a good one, because, yeah, the banks want to know that you're organized and there are provisions for things that happen down the road. And they want to make sure that usually an attorney has looked at that and made sure it works for that company. So, yeah, you do see a lot more now.
And he said it's organic, you know, it can change, you know, and that's, you know, part of the process.
Yeah.
It is, it makes, like I said, in the lending function, we rely on those documents.
It used to scare me, like, say it's an S corporation, so, you know, you have shareholders, and you want, you know, say Hobson Lumber wants to do something, wants to do a corporate resolution or to change something. It's literally as simple as just drafting a simple corporate resolution saying this is what we want to do, put that in the log, log that, and there's a document. And it's not, but as long as you're adhering to what the inception documents say you're supposed to do, you'll be fine. But that's literally how it's done. So I forgot to bring business cards. I may even, I don't know, send a follow-up letter, or certainly if any of you have any follow-up questions to this, need to get in touch with me, or just something pops in your head you want to ask me, I'm here. I'd be more than happy. Frankly, there's only about 8 or 10 of you, so be more than happy to talk to you about that and see if I can help you out. It's not a problem at all. I'd be happy to do it. So thank you very much for having me tonight, and maybe I'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Your firm's located here in Hillsborough. It's under Robert Boot and Zimmer, LLC, and they're definitely a big part of the community and the region, not just in Hillsborough. They serve the whole county and region. So we appreciate you coming down. I think you explained it in ways that, you know, we needed to hear it. And, you know, that's for sure, because it's practical and we can use it. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we appreciate the offer to, you know, do the follow-up, and we'll be here every week for the next, 4 more Tuesdays. So if you have anything that you can bring in your card, we'll make sure we get it out to them. And, it'll have that contact information. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap it up? We'll meet again, next week in this room. Be sure you get your name on the attendance sheet if you're here, because at the end of the sessions, we'll, we'll have that drawing for that iPad, as promised. And, but if you have anything that you thought of that you wanted to ask, and you'll get home and say, oh, I wish I would have asked that. But, and we very much, you get those answers to you, and if I don't know them, which I don't claim to know, I can definitely find somebody that might have the answer, for Mr. Stichling, and we can get those things to you. We appreciate you giving up your time tonight and visiting with us. We're looking forward to getting to know y'all better. And I have to say, Mr. Stoke is one of our board of directors in our DeSoto community. We have local directors in each of the communities our banks are in. We're a almost $1.7 billion bank. We have 46 branches. They're in the state of Missouri, headquartered in Farmington. We have community banks, and we have community directors. And Kevin Roberts serves on our Hillsborough DeSoto board, and so does Stoke. And we appreciate their input and advice that helps us be a better bank, because it tells us what's going on in the community in which we all live. Thank you, Darren. We appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody have a safe trip back
Yes, we can
home.
hold that one.